You're listening to a Soul One podcast.
Taylor, have you seen previews at all? I don't know if you've been to an actual movie theater recently, but for this The Chosen Last Supper thing?
Okay, to answer your first question, I have not been to the theater since seeing Nosferatu a couple days after Christmas. To answer your question about The Chosen, I have not seen any previews, but obviously my Catholic social media is blowing up over The Chosen
Have you
and how
watched
this
this
is.
show?
No, so all the Catholic people I know, like Catholic world, says that it's amazing. And just to be honest, it's a round of media that I have not gotten to yet. But it's also it has a very interesting story, Mike. It was crowd funded. Is that what it's
Mm-hmm.
called? Crowdsourced.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
essentially season to season, they support raised to make the TV show, and then they offer it for free. So you can find it
Where
online. I think you
where
can
do I
find it on.
get this show? Because I like have seen nothing but a bunch of previews for this and thought to myself, I'm like, well, that's interesting that they're doing kind of like a Last Supper movie. But then I realized it was a TV show. Not only is it a TV show, it's the 5th season of a
Yep,
TV show.
the final season. So the
Oh, I heard it was going to 7. I don't know
oh,
how they're stretching it out, but that's what I heard.
I thought it was
or
the
maybe it's
last.
6. Maybe it's 6.
I thought it was
But
the last season. So another interesting thing about it is that it was with a production company called Angel Studios, which people may or may not know is responsible for a lot of Christian movies. And the creators of The Chosen have parted ways with Angel Studios.
hmm.
So I don't know if the I wouldn't be surprised. So if people know their Bible, spoiler alert, Jesus dies, raises from the dead, and then ascends into heaven. And then there's a couple books of the Bible where the apostles are like figuring things out. Jesus has gone away. They're evangelizing the world. So you certainly could have season 6 and 7 just of
Yeah.
the apostles
But no
without
one
Jesus.
come on, no one cares about that part of the Bible. That's not like
I
that's
mean,
not high entertainment value.
they were
The story's
murdered in
over.
very interesting ways.
Sure, but like that's no, like let's get serious here. But what I've heard about this show is that it's
Apparently it's
like
amazing.
Game of Thrones Rome style like
Yeah.
cinematography and like really well done. And just watching the previews when I go to the movie theater, I have thought like that production value is
Looks
top
good.
notch. Like that's really well done. And I'm kind of interested, but I had no idea it was a series. I don't know where to find it. Because I
So
don't feel like, even though I know the story, I feel like I can't just jump in to the 5th season of this just because, like,
no,
yeah, no,
you
I know
probably
who everyone is. Like,
you probably want to watch the first seasons because it's like the emotional climax. It's it's Holy Week, it's the Passion, it's Jesus going to get crucified. So you kind of want to walk with these characters for the first couple seasons to have the emotional payoff, I would think. It probably is available on Angel Studios, the free app. There were for a time you could have downloaded it had its own app where you could watch all the episodes, and you might even be able to find full episodes on YouTube or Prime.
why are they
Mike. So
releasing it in theaters if it's going to be free later anyway?
because the audiences are crazy for it. People
Oh.
absolutely love this show. The Christian community, but also I just read a headline that there is a certain segment of the population who are atheists who are watching it. Apparently people just think it's a really good show.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what I've heard. Is that it's legitimately just a good show, regardless
Just
of what the
happens.
content is. That's all
It
I've
just
heard.
happens to be
Yeah.
Jesus. So
Yeah, it's like Game of Thrones, but it just happens to be about Jesus. Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I've heard.
The what makes this show different is that it like really humanizes Jesus, and it really humanizes all the characters. It's like
Yeah,
you're
well, it's a
following.
movie Jesus, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a just like with everything. Like even one of the movies I'm talking about today, that's that's literally based on something that I guess only happened last year. Anyway, it's very confusing. They made it a movie already. When you have like a movie version of anything, whether it's based in religion, mythology, real world, combo of everything, like you're going to get a certain level of like an approach you have to take. Are you going to humanize, or are you going to go the
Yeah.
fantastical? And I think people want grounded things. Like I do think the grounded shows, even if they have like fantasy elements, what people talk about with Game of Thrones and Last of Us and Rome is how real it feels. And I think that's
Hmm.
what people want.
And it kind of it fills in the gaps. Like you see Jesus walking with the apostles. There's obviously lots of things you don't see or hear in the gospels, and it kind of fills in those blanks
Well, if
and
they're
like
stretching out the
fleshes. Yeah.
Last Supper for an entire season of show, I would say yes. You're gonna have to add stuff. Isn't the Last Supper
I
like a
don't.
couple hours long? Like,
Yeah, yeah, it's like it
like
happens it happens over 3 days, the passion. But I don't know how true this is, but I think it's accurate. They were again, there's just so many interesting stories just from a back even if you're not Christian, like just the background production is very interesting. So the I guess they were getting ready to photograph production posters, right? And they're like, okay, we want Annie Leibovitz, which, and I might be mispronouncing her name, but she's the famous photographer that's worked for Vogue. They're like, we want Annie Leibovitz style photographs for this. And they're like, you know what? Why don't we just reach out to her? She's probably gonna say no, but like, let's just see. And so they reached out to her, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the show. I'll shoot your production posters for
wow,
you." So
wow. They're just getting everybody.
so yeah, I don't know, like, and yeah. Anyways, obviously I can talk a lot about this because I love when my worlds collide, and I think The Chosen is such an interesting story, just from like again like the production side of things to be a crowdsourced phenomena that has lasted 5 seasons, maybe more. It's the Do you remember in Christmas time, around Christmas time, they released, oh, I'm gonna blank on the name. I think it's called The Greatest Story Ever Told. It's like it's that Christmas pageant movie.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
Oh, the best Christmas pageant ever. Yeah, it's
yes,
based on a play.
yes. So the creators of The Chosen did that movie this Christmas.
It's
And
quite
apparently
quite
it
the
also
leap.
got very, pardon me?
Well, it's quite the leap in terms of production value. Like that movie, Best Christmas Pageant Ever, just looks like a
Does it
regular
not?
movie.
Oh,
This
okay.
looks like a
HBO.
crazy HBO TV show. Like I'm shocked. I'm shocked at how
That's
good the production value is.
this
But then
little
I've never heard of it.
Christian.
Like I've never heard of it. Like I go to the movie theaters and I'm like, what are these ads for this Chosen TV show? That's this big deal, and I've never even
They
heard of
did
it.
it maybe last year, the year before. They did it for the Christmas story. They did one for Christmas, like the Advent
Hmm.
story.
Right.
So and again released it in theaters. I think you can watch, I think every season after the first season they've released select episodes in theaters, and I think it's literally for the fans. They're
But
like, it's free.
it's so fascinating to me because it looks like not only does it look super legitimate, like even the cast, like the casting choices they made, like they look like people who would have been around in that time. You know
Yeah,
what I
the
mean?
good
Like
casting.
it's not super like, what do you call it, westernized or whatever. Like it's like pretty solid, careful casting, a well done production value, like relatively. I mean, to me, it looked like practical sets. Like I don't know,
Sure.
maybe there's some CGI in there, but it looked very much like, oh, if you showed me a still from that, and I didn't know The Chosen existed, I would guess, okay, maybe I've seen all of Game of Thrones, so it's probably not that, but maybe it's Rome. Like maybe it's one of those other like big HBO shows because of just the quality of filmmaking. So yeah, it surprised me. I
Well, check
thought
it out. Let me know.
I'm gonna have to find it. I'm gonna search for this TV show and throw it on and see
I
what.
think it's very easy to find, Mike. Like, I think
Okay,
you'll be shocked by how easy it is. Multiple ways to watch it.
I'll Google it. Okay, well, we've got some fun fan questions to get into
Okay.
before we review our movies. And as I already mentioned, my movie is based on a true event that I guess happened last year. But you, Taylor, don't know anything. You've never heard this movie. It's called Last Breath. So, what do you think it's about?
Well, when we before we started to record, you said it. I said I've never heard of that movie before, and you said it sounds exactly how you think it sounds. And then you did a pause, and in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, rom com or not rom com, like Fault in the Stars. Like I thought, like doomed tragic teen lovers. And then you said being at the bottom of the ocean fighting for survival, and I was like, oh, not at all what I thought. What? So
Rom
name
com,
say
really?
the name. It's not rom com, but like like doomed teen lovers. What's the name of the movie again? Don't
Last Breath.
Last Breath. Yeah, like I just pictured one of the kids is dying from some a strange illness, taking their last breath. There's romance. It's gonna be sad, like a walk to remember. Essentially, I thought it was gonna be like a walk to remember, but no. That you teased the fact that this happened last year. I'm assuming, Mike, then, based on that clue, this is going to be about the submarine that exploded.
No, this is
Oh,
about it's about like a deep sea diving team that they're responsible for keeping track and maintaining all the, like, you know how there's like, I guess on the ocean floor there's just
right.
pipe and electrical cords and like stuff that's just like there. They're in charge of maintaining it, and one of the three divers gets stranded at the bottom of the ocean, and it's about the other divers and kind of the crew of their ship trying to figure out how to get to them.
Right. So kind of like, kind of, but not at all like the movie about the Thai boys in the caves and having to
Yeah,
rescue
yeah,
so like a rescue, like
yeah,
a,
yes, yes, precisely. And
okay.
Woody Harrelson's in it.
Okay. Was this
So
released in theaters?
this was released in theaters this year. It's a very new movie. You can now rent it on YouTube for $5. And it just came out, and the event apparently happened like last year. So they turned this into a movie real fast.
Yeah, they're like
Um,
we are cashing
we're
in on this
banking this.
tragedy.
So I'll be talking about that, and then you're reviewing Holland, but not the country. It will, of course,
Yes,
be the movie.
Holland. It takes place in Holland, Michigan, which I can only assume is a fake town. I didn't look it up. I assume it's fake. But the new oh my gosh, I'm totally blanking. She was in Baby
Nicole
Girl.
Kidman.
Yeah, the new Nicole Kidman movie. Because she
Yeah.
seems to be in 3 movies a year. So this is the
Yes.
first one of
Also a
2025.
new one this year. So we'll review some new movies, but first, let's get to some fan questions. So we're going
Okay.
through these. We'll do two, like we've been doing. These are kind of in-depth questions. So for the first time in the history of this podcast and any iteration of our podcast in the past 7 years, I pre-sent an email to Taylor with all these deep fan questions, and she has not read them.
She did
So
not do her homework
yeah,
as
so
per.
after many times of you complaining, again and again, you got to send me these questions. I want more time. I can't think at this speed. Blah 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 blah. So I do it, and every time you're like, "No, I didn't look at it."
Well,
Like,
to be
okay,
fair, I was sick a week ago, and last week George was sick. So you sent them at a bad time. You know, but anyways, continue.
the
I'll
trump card.
perform.
The trump card is always the children. There's nothing I can say. There's nothing I can say to that.
No?
All right, are you ready?
Yes.
Which movie character would you want to be your best friend? And this comes from Sam.
Okay, Mike. So I have been, you were kind of disingenuous. I have read the questions. I just haven't had time to think hard about them. But this one has been one that I've been thinking about. And
Okay.
ooh, baby, is it a doozy? Do you have an answer?
Uh, no, I have enough friends. I don't. I don't. I don't really need any more to be completely. If I'm being completely honest, like I have more than enough friends. I have enough on my social calendar for friends. I don't really need any more. So I
You don't
don't know if I
have
could.
a friend who like drops in every once in a while, takes you on a whirlwind adventure. You see them maybe once a year, every 2 years.
It's
You
not a
have a
best
whirlwind.
friend. It's
Yeah,
just a
you.
friend. The
I mean, my
question clearly states you would want as a best friend. I gotta be the advocate for our fans, who I don't even like. And I gotta say, we gotta get Sam's question perfectly right.
My
It
best
clearly
friends,
says best friend.
my best friends, aside from one, they live in different countries and different
But
cities. None of
but you
my
would have formed a friendship with them prior to that
true,
happening.
true, true, true.
So this
Okay,
is
well,
best friend has to be someone who you could have cultivated some kind of long-lasting relationship. So by the time you get to the point in life where you drop in for one whirlwind adventure, yes, it's a whirlwind adventure, but all the kind of past you have with that friend is there. You can't just have whirlwind adventures with people and think, oh yeah, this is a big impact. No, it means nothing to them. They are a best friend. So it's
so
gotta be best
my
friend.
answers are either Paddington the bear, because he's wholesome and fun and kind-hearted and will take you on adventures, and you might get into some escapades, but they always work out in the end, and he's always willing to share his marmalade sandwiches with me. So Paddington the bear, number one. And then my runner-up was Gandalf, because I think you want a friend who has a skill that you can utilize
Oh,
when
that's a
you're
good
in a
point.
jam, and he is magic. He is a wizard. I think I would want to be friends with Gandalf the Grey, not Gandalf the White, because Gandalf the Grey seems to have a little more joie de vivre and wants to just hang out in Hobbiton and smoke his pipe and just like play with his fireworks, which seems like a really chill, fun, cool time. But again, he has magic, so if I'm in a jam, he can help me out. So those are my two
Okay.
answers. It's a toss up between Paddington and Gandalf. Does that
Yeah.
change your outlook, Mike?
Well, I would say your reasoning is sound. Uh, could you form a lasting bond with either of them? I would say so. And those are probably friendships. Like again, when Gandalf shows up in Hobbiton, he's been there many times. His
Exactly.
friendship with Frodo and Bilbo is long lasting because of things that happen. So as long as you're admitting that yes, nowadays you would just chill with Gandalf, you would have had to have had some kind of shared experience with Gandalf in the past. Okay, let me think here. So I'm gonna take Doc Brown from Back to the Future.
Oh my gosh, that
Uh,
chaotic energy, I could not be friends with
Absolutely.
that.
No, I can balance it out. That's what's good about me is I'm good at balancing out chaotic energy. And frankly, I'd love to travel to both the past and the future. I got lots to do. So I'm on board for that. The second one, can I like is it cheating to say Jesus?
From
But
what?
I want the time traveling Jesus from Hamlet too. That's what I
Okay.
want.
Okay.
I want Jesus from Hamlet too,
I was gonna say you
played
haven't
by
even
Steve
seen the
Coogan.
Chosen. You haven't even seen the Chosen yet, Mike. So that is cheating. But you
He's been
want
in other movies.
Jesus from
I
Hamlet too.
Jesus from
Got it.
Hamlet too. Yeah, so it's still
Okay.
got some power, but he's also time traveling. Because I'd also the entire premise of Hamlet 2 is now popping into my head. That would be fun, you know.
Being friends with the guy who wrote Hamlet 2,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
writer.
the crazy. I don't even remember his character name, but it's Steve Coogan, right?
See, I thought my rationale was there's lots of movies obviously that I love, characters that are close to my heart, but their energy wouldn't be one that I would want around all the time.
Yeah,
So,
most movie characters are so over the top, like it's not sustainable, right? Like that's kind of the idea.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think that's why the idea of it, okay, maybe it's not a friend that's around all the time now, but you have a lasting bond with this person, which you can't get by just dropping in and out of their lives. You have to have had some sort of experience
Doc
with them,
Brown's
some
a
time with
solid
them.
answer.
I think
And
Doc
not for
Brown,
me, not for
yeah,
me, but
but yeah, I think Doc Brown. So there you go, there you
okay.
go. I literally turned and looked at my shelf of movies to
And
try to
that was the
answer
one
this.
that
Well, I mean, some of
stood
these, I'm
out.
like, there's no one in these movies that I can, you know.
They're all horrible.
Yeah, like there's nothing. There's definitely no one in Repo. Uh, the Euro Trip gang is too much for me.
That's the
Uh,
thing. Like, I was thinking of Wes Anderson characters, and it's like they're all too much drama.
yeah, there's too much drama going on. Yeah, there's no way. Okay. What's the most underrated movie you think deserves more recognition than it gets?
Can I say The Crow? No, I'm joking.
No, you can't say The Crow. The
And
show
the
has a cult
19
following, though.
yeah,
You
and the
know, like it's
1994. I don't think I like any movies that are,
have a
like,
great
criminally
answers.
underrated,
I
right?
have a
You know what
great
I mean? Like,
great
movies that,
answer.
like, because even the movies that I like a lot typically have, like, what you said, Mike, a cult following. So you go ahead. You answer.
I mean, I have several, but I got one that is perfect. Love, Simon.
I know
Uh,
you love that movie.
that movie is absolute. It's criminally underrated in terms
And I
of
feel like it
everything.
got good reviews.
Oh, it got good reviews, but it never
Flash in the
got
pan, I guess.
to yeah, it never got to the point where you hear people talk about movies like Happiest Season and what's the one with Billy Eichner, the one that got all the buzz.
The Hangover?
No,
The
the one that
Holdovers?
was like the romantic comedy, but it was the gay one with the two best friend, the two not the two guys, Billy Eichner
Oh,
and what's his face, the
I don't
guy
know.
from The Thing. You know what I'm talking about, though. You know what that movie is.
It did come out recently.
2 years ago, maybe.
See,
The point is
obviously
that movie got all this kind of like rah
buzz.
rah of like everyone's got to support it,
Right.
LGBTQ, this is the thing, and it's got it like it's the first ever like romantic comedy with two gay characters, and it had like I think the whole idea around that movie and what people were talking about was like the entire cast was LGBTQ plus, right? Like that was the
Right.
idea, and once seeing the movie, I kind of I feel like the only person who's like putting my hand up being like, Love, Simon is also
Really
a
good.
movie about this exact thing but is way better, and no one's talking about it. Even Happiest Season, which people did talk about a lot because it was like a
Oh, that was the
another one.
one with Kristen
Kristen
Stewart, right?
Stewart,
Yeah,
and I
we
can't
reviewed that
remember.
one.
Yeah, and like that was also really well done, and it still gets talked about a little bit more, but still not to the level of like that. That what is that name of that movie? This is gonna bother me. Now I'm gonna
Couldn't
have
tell
to look
you.
it up. I'm
Couldn't
just
tell
gonna
you.
type in Billy Eichner; it'll come up. And I think one of the things that I look at is everyone just focused so much on who was creating the movie, and no one focused on the point of a movie, which is to tell a story. So who cares about the sexuality of the people putting on the piece? The piece is what should matter. The movie's
Right.
called Bros. So Bros, Happiest Season, Love, Simon, right?
Oh.
All these films came out within the past like maybe 10 years or so. And like Bros gets all this attention to the point of like, here's all these negative things you are if you don't watch it and go see it. And it's like Love, Simon did this exact same thing like 6 years earlier, did it better. And it's also an interesting coming of age story. Like it kind of does this interesting thing that I think movies struggle with, where it's about like four things at once. It's about
Hmm.
friendship, it's about love, it's about finding oneself, and it's about like the struggles of being in high school.
Right.
Even if you are not part of that community, you can relate to every character in this movie. And that's what good films do. They transcend these weird things that we do to each other where we're like, oh, we have to focus on this, and this is the most important thing. And your identity is these one of these couple of things, and that's it. But I think Love, Simon showed like, oh, a person contains such multitudes because there's so many angles to these individuals as they're trying to discover who they are. And I just think the movie is just plain better than anything. If there's a movie that I was to show someone being like, this is a movie that can do a lot of good for anyone who's not part of the LGBTQ plus community, someone who maybe you want to sort of say, hey, like it's okay to see different stories on screen. This is it. Like this is the one you point to because it's actually a legitimate good film.
So, changing gears completely, I've thought of two movies,
You
Mike,
thought if you came up with two more in that time.
and and but okay, so one of them, and people are gonna think that I'm probably crazy for these two movies, but also one of them might have a cult following that I'm not aware of. So the first movie that I thought of that is very definitely a big part of my high school experience, but like into young adulthood, Saved with and I'm not gonna be able to. Oh, Mandy Moore is in this movie. The girl from Sucker Punch, she's not a girl, the young woman from Sucker Punch and The Hunger Games is in it. Jenna, I'm gonna mess up her name.
Malone.
Yes, Jenna Malone. I think
This
this one
sounds
of,
vaguely familiar.
yeah, it came out, I want to say like 2001. It's one of those like 1999. It feels like a 1999 movie, but it's probably like 2001, maybe even 2003. Mandy Moore plays the villain, like quote unquote villain. Interestingly, it's one of the last movies of Macaulay Culkin. He's in this movie. He plays the brother of Mandy Moore. So this movie I think is so well done. It's kind of not so much a spoof, but it looks at Christian high school, like the Christian high school experience and sort of the hypocrisy of it. And it's very funny, like very, very witty. I think the cast has really great chemistry. But that movie might have a cult following that I'm not aware of. Maybe people do really like Saved and I just don't know. Uh, and then
Oh, I thought of another one too.
that's
Actually, I
similar
don't
to
know.
Saved,
Well,
or
no, but somehow you got me there, like with
right.
Safe, which is a movie that I think you've seen and like as well. Taylor's Mystery Men. I don't think that movie's talked about
Oh
enough
no,
in terms
I
of.
have
You
not
haven't
seen
seen
that
that?
movie, but
It's like a
I,
spoof on superhero movies. Um,
yeah, I know
and
of it. I just haven't seen
okay,
it.
okay, you would appreciate and love
Oh,
this movie because it's
and
a
that
stand-up
reminds me of
comedy.
Dickie Roberts, former child star, also a great underrated movie.
Is it?
But do people not like it, or is it not good?
Which one?
Dickie Roberts, like that.
Well,
I
I've heard people just don't like it.
see.
Like
I
I've
think
just
it's a
heard.
great movie. I think it's
I've never
great.
seen it, so I don't know. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know
And
anything
then
about it.
my last movie, and I think so. I'll tell a very short story, Mike, about this movie. So Nicole, a friend of the show, friend of me, my best friend, Nicole and I grew up watching Stigmata and with Gabriel Byrne and Patricia Arquette. And I think this movie is phenomenal. I love this movie. I think it's a good horror movie. I think it has interesting themes, great chemistry between Patricia Arquette and Gabriel Byrne. I want to say his last name is Byrne. Um, and then I showed it to two girlfriends in grad school, and they were like, "Taylor, this movie is horrible. Like this is." This is not. They're like, we had a fun experience. It was fun watching it. It was so bad it was good. But like, no, this is not a good movie. And I was shocked, Mike. Like I
Mm.
thought Stigmata was it is. I think Stigmata is a great movie. So there's a movie that I think is great that is criminally underrated, but I think probably the vast majority of people probably just think it's bad.
I've got two more very
Okay, go
quickly.
ahead.
Wish I Was Here, which is a
No.
Zach Braff movie. Have you seen that?
No.
No, it's a Zach Braff movie. He's basically like he's a struggling actor, and he has like a wife and two kids, but he's kind of also struggling with like reality of life. Like he escapes into his own head a lot and like creates realities and stuff. Like, he's not like it's not like a he's ill or anything. He's just like daydreaming,
Right.
and because he's an actor, like he kind of prefers that. But Mandy Patinkin plays like his father who gets ill, and there's like all these like things that happen. It's one of those like really heartfelt movies, but with like a lot of comedy to it as
Sure.
well. Like there's a lot of kind of things within there as they're kind of dealing with like family trauma and life and that kind of thing. So Wish I Was Here, I think, is another one that doesn't get enough recognition of a really, really, really good movie with like a lot of heart and a lot of cool stuff. Because it reminds me of that movie about I think it's Steve Carell, and he's like he's plays like a horrible stepfather. Um, and there's like a
Steve
trip that
Carell.
like the kids on a trip. Anyway, there's like
Oh,
this. It reminds me a lot of
oh,
that
Little
movie.
Miss Sunshine.
No,
No,
I
there's
don't
a
think I've seen
family
Little Miss
trip in
Sunshine.
Little Miss Sunshine.
You're
And
right, but
Steve
I just don't think
Carell's the
I don't think I've
dad.
seen that. I don't think I've seen that.
Okay.
So okay,
Anyways.
there's an identical movie where, which I know. Oh, The Way Back. That's the name of the movie
Okay.
that a lot of people like, and Wish I Was Here kind of reminds me of that kind of tone, very similar tone. So that's definitely another one that I would say doesn't get quite enough recognition, just for what it is. Like just for it's kind of kind of one of those like small movies, but just I think is pretty good and is well done. And Zach Braff, I think, is actually a decent filmmaker. Like I think he does put on some pretty decent movies. So
I think they're
That's another
talking
one.
about reviving Scrubs.
Really?
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me. There's a lot of that going around. I liked part of Scrubs. Like some episodes of Scrubs were
I
pretty good.
guess he didn't make Scrubs, he just acted
No,
in it.
he was in it. Yeah. Okay. Shall we move on to some movie reviews?
Yes.
Um, so yeah, I've got Last Breath. You've got Holland. Where shall we begin?
Well, I don't know anything about your movie. I guess you don't know anything about mine. I was gonna say I don't know anything about yours, so you go first.
We
But it's
both don't
really
know anything about each other's movies.
yeah.
Yeah, I can kick things off. Yeah, so as I kind of alluded to, Last Breath is based on a real diving incident that happened.
And
So
like, I should say I did not hear anything about this diving accident. I
I
really
didn't know either.
okay. But apparently true
Also,
story that happened
well,
last year.
as through my research, apparently
Mm.
there's also a documentary that just came out
Oh.
at the end of last year by this same director with the exact same name about this incident.
So clearly very passionate about
Very
this
much so.
story.
Very much so. So there's a documentary and there's a movie. I have not seen the documentary, so I can't speak to it, but I have seen the movie. So
Have you
basically,
ever just pause real quick. Have you ever heard obviously there's documentaries and movies all the time about the same subject matter, but this is the first I've ever heard about a filmmaker making a documentary and then being so passionate about the project, making the movie.
well, and also probably having to do them back to back, like going from one right into the
I've
other.
never heard of that happening.
Yeah, no, no.
Interesting. Okay, go ahead.
Um, so yeah, as I said, there's a lot of pipes and such along the ocean floor, and this is basically a story about the crew that is responsible for maintaining one particular section. And through a series of like unfortunate events and a storm, one of the divers gets stranded at the bottom of the ocean. Um, so I'm not like 100% sure about like what the purposes of everything that they were working on was, but there's essentially now a ticking time clock, right? Like he's only got so much air left. They've got to
Right.
get him out of there, and they got to figure it out. So sometimes in these movies, you kind of get these different angles where you might see the movie like really from the perspective of the person stranded, and it's kind of like an isolated movie about the person stranded, and then sometimes you see it from the perspective of kind of back and forth where it's like you jump to the people stranded and then back to people rescuing them. This movie is very much about the rescuers. Like it's
Okay.
about what's going on above the surface, which does make sense because there's nothing for this person to do at the bottom of the ocean floor. Like they kind of just
That was
they do
like
have like little
the
moments, but they just stand there, you know?
that was like the movie of the Thai soccer team that Dan and I watched
Hmm.
because that's Dan's pet project or not pet project, but one of his, you know how speaking of Roman empires, that's Dan's Roman Empire, the Thai cave rescue. So in that
Oh,
movie with and I'm blanking on the name of it, but it's Viggo Mortensen and Colin
yes.
Farrell. That's like you sometimes see the boys stuck in the caves, but they're not doing anything. I mean, there's nothing for them to do in the cave. That would make for a boring movie. So anyway, so what you're saying, Mike, is that there's no flashbacks to the person underwater.
Not really. There is a little bit at the beginning, but they kind of go away from that and they focus on the team. So you've
That
got
makes
like the
sense to
captain
me.
of the ship and all the divers and them trying to like figure out what to do. Yeah, it makes sense to me too. Just a side note, I still it is still a thing in the back of my head that I don't have a Roman Empire. Um, and apparently every other male does. So I'm still that
Yeah.
still twinges me a little bit. Where I'm like, why don't I have one?
You just don't have one yet.
I mean, I'm getting there in years. Like, if I don't have one now, am I really going to suddenly find a Roman Empire?
Fair enough.
Um, so basically, this movie, which is really interesting because it has, as I said, it has Woody Harrelson in it, but despite having him in it, it's actually like a big ensemble movie. So
Okay.
you get like quite a bit of Woody Harrelson, but you get like a lot of the ship captain and other members of the crew trying to kind of work together. Simu Liu is in this, who was in a Marvel movie and a bunch of other things. Canadian
Canadian.
actor. So you get kind of little bits of everybody, but I think the biggest strength this movie actually has is the fact that it has an ensemble that are just all solid actors. Like there's no weak link. Everyone's really good. No one person has to like carry this emotional load of the movie. Like everyone's just solid does their job really, really well, and that just adds to the tension. Because this movie does have a lot of tension in it. Like it's one of those films where you're building and building tension. There's a ticking clock. Obviously, because it's based on real life, there's like a part of me that goes like, how much did this actually happen, and how much is over dramatized? But I think this movie does a really good job of, even though that's in the back of my head, you kind of forget about it because it does a good job of building the tension on its own. Like it makes everything makes sense. Nothing's too fantastical. Like you don't see like, oh, and here comes a pod of sharks, right? Like that's not what it's about. It's about fighting against basically the nature and trying to figure out a way through this
Here's
storm
a
and trying
dumb
to go
question
through.
though. Why can't they just send down, obviously it's based on a true story, there's a reason for this, but I'm thinking they obviously got down to where they were.
That's
Why
right.
can't
So
they just send
a
someone down?
storm hits that's worse than they expected. And when what happens is when they lose the one person, they can't send anyone else down because they'll just lose them too. And suddenly they'll have multiple people stuck at the
Oh,
bottom.
got it.
So they're desperately trying to like go to a different location and go at from an angle, trying to ride out the storm, trying different techniques. Like you've got like Woody Harrelson and like other divers who like are pitching a variety of ideas.
Got it.
And you've got like the captain and crew that are just like, this is not worth the risk. So there's kind of this like push and pull between to do different sides, like different things we can try. And the movie does give you like every movie, like a couple tries or attempts. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, but something always happens that makes it difficult, and they have to kind of reset and try something new. So it does a really good job with that. Like it's really interesting. I think the movie is still pretty grounded and works in all those things. So I think that was pretty good, like a pretty well done. Now again, now that knowing there's a documentary of the same name, I don't know if it would be better to just watch the documentary. Like it's obviously two different styles, right? Like you're gonna have two
Sure.
very different feelings watching these movies. Like a documentary and a film like this have two different like feels to them. But I think if you're the type of person that's interested in, thrillers with lots of characters trying to sort out a problem, like we have to get here and there's a problem, we got to figure it out. I think there's a lot to like about this movie. Like I do think it kind of works in a lot of ways, and it does surprise me that a movie that is kind of simple in a way and kind of revolves around essentially one location. They do a really good job of making it kind of work. Now, just to throw something out there, there is a movie. So this is called Last Breath, right?
Yeah.
There's a movie called The Last Breath that's like a shark attack movie. So just keep that in
Oh.
mind. You want to make
And
sure it's not the.
hold hold your breath horror movie.
That's right. So make sure you get the right one because these are they're probably very, very different.
So you're saying
Um,
this is a 2025 release.
that's right. This just came out. This is this year. And I think
It got dumped at the
the
beginning of the year.
yeah, it did, and I'm not too sure why. Like normally you can tell, the movie's just not very good. I thought this one did a good job. Like I thought it built tension well. I thought the character was good. Like it's a short movie. It's a simple movie. It's not. I don't think it's much over an hour and a half. Honestly, like I think it's
But it
around that
sounds like a
time.
movie that should have been in theaters. Like to me that like
Well, it was.
gripping,
It definitely
well,
was.
yeah,
Just
I
not
guess
all over the place. Yeah.
and I guess we just live in a different time, cuz to me if that movie was released in the 90s, it would have been in theaters for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
That's like
Mm-hmm.
the type of movie you're describing to me would be like, oh, it would have a long theatrical run. It has like a tentpole star. It has a ensemble cast of varying recognizable faces.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
tight story. Everyone loves a
Yeah.
good rescue disaster movie.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just odd to me that it was dumped at the beginning of the year and it was probably in
Yeah.
theaters for like what, 4 weeks? If
Probably. And I do think like I think of the screening room back in Kingston all the time, and this is the kind of movie that I think I would see at the screening room
yeah.
and be glad I saw it. Like I would enjoy it. And even though it's a small movie, and it feels like a small movie, to me it's still a see it. Like I think it did its job. Like again, like we talk about all the time, I scale my opinion on movies and films based upon what I'm watching. If this was like a big disaster film with a million stars in it, then my expectations would be different. than
Sure.
what they gave me. But because of what this movie was and the way it was put together, it's a tight character drama with a good story. It builds tension well, and it does everything in an effective way. So I think this is a see it. I think it's worth watching.
Interesting. Yeah, I just don't it just makes me think of this weird weird world we live in with the way movies are promoted and how long
Hmm.
they're in theaters for and stuff. It's just
Well,
a
they just don't
different
think they can make money
yeah,
anymore with, you know.
it's just a different yeah, it's a different world. And I would think that with Woody Harrelson, it would have a higher rental. Like the fact that it's already only $5. It was a
Yeah.
new release. Anyways, we could rack our brains for hours trying to think of why Hollywood does the things they do, but here we are. I saw Holland, as we mentioned, starring Nicole Kidman. I do not have any web browsers up, so I cannot tell you the names of the other actors. But the two male leads are definitely recognizable. Like if you saw their faces,
Mm,
you would definitely know them from things, but I wouldn't
mm,
describe them as necessarily like A-listers. Um I want to say, yeah, I can't even place them, but they have recognizable faces. So the premise of this movie is pretty straightforward. Nicole Kidman plays a wife who lives in Holland, Michigan, and it's a town that's very Dutch. It's not really explained why the town is Dutch, but there's people who speak Dutch in the lunchroom. They go to a what I can only presume is a Dutch Reformed church. There's a lot of Dutch iconography, so it's a very Dutch town. And essentially, she is a teacher. She teaches kind of home ec or some variant of home ec at the school, and her husband um, is an optometrist, and they have a son, and her life is seemingly perfect, but of course we know that it is nothing is perfect, and the movie very quickly becomes a mystery. So we think that
mm,
um something is lying under the surface of this town. We don't know quite what, and the character, Nicole Kidman's character, thinks that like the issue is with her husband, and she thinks that her husband is cheating on her, and so the movie is kind of a mystery as to what is the husband hiding. Is it, is the town part of the secret? And she teams up with the shop teacher to sort of investigate this mystery. So I love a good mystery as much as the next person. I love a good true crime as much as the next person. I also love a town with a creepy underbelly, a la David Lynch.
mm-hmm.
I think the setup for this movie was quite effective, but they underutilized the creepiness of the town, and it ends up like the town is like ultra conservative, but like that's not the problem, I guess you could say. Like I thought like, okay, there's gonna be like a something sinister with the town. The town isn't the major driving plot point for this movie. Am I making sense, Mike? Like
Yeah,
I thought the town was a little bit underutilized, and it really becomes the mysteries really focused on the husband.
right.
Um I thought, Nicole Kidman, I think always does I've never seen a movie where Nicole Kidman isn't doing 110%. She always seems to really be enjoying herself, and I got the sense with this movie that she was enjoying herself. She had good chemistry with the shop teacher. She had chemistry with the gentleman who plays her husband, but of course like there is supposed to be like a stinted there's something going on in their relationship, so I think she played that well. The kid who played the son was good. There's moments where the movie was funny. I just felt the movie was okay. It was one of those movies, Mike, where it was like, yeah, like it was I enjoyed it. It was just under 2 hours. The mystery certainly kept me engaged, but
Mm-hmm.
like we knew the mystery was always going to be with the husband. Like there never was a red herring. There is never,
Really?
yeah, like you were like, okay, there's something going on with the husband. Either the red herrings kept being that like he had an explanation for things. So like if something would happen, he would be able to explain it away, and then that would kind of like slow the plot. And then something else would happen, she would kind of confront her husband, she would have an explanation that would slow the plot. Like it was never like, I never thought that like she was the problem, or like the shop teacher was the problem, or the town was the problem. Like the plot is always moving steadily towards the fact that the husband is the problem in this movie. And I felt like the director and the director both directed and wrote, so like that's definitely a him problem. He didn't write anything into the script to complicate the plot. Like you
Right.
certainly, there is a small twist with what the husband is up to, but like not by the time that the twist happens, you're like, yeah, okay. Like obviously. Like it was like, okay, he was either cheating or doing X. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was like, so all that to be said, it was one of those movies, if you just kind of turn your brain off and like watch it for 2 hours,
Ugh,
it's fine.
I
It's
hate that
fine.
term. I hate
Turning your
that.
brain off.
Yeah, I mean, like, I get it, but I hate it. Like, I just think, for me at least, what I get out of engaging in things like art, all forms of art, I don't want to turn my brain off.
Right.
Like, I
Especially if
want
it's a
my brain to
mystery.
be on. Yeah, I want to think, and I want to think critically, and I want to engage in that way. So yeah, I don't know. I just don't like that
I
term.
think we had this question several months ago now, and I can't remember exactly how the question was phrased. I think it was along the lines of, have we seen a movie that would have made a good miniseries, or have we seen a good miniseries
Mm,
that would have made a good movie?
mm-hmm,
This movie would have
mm-hmm.
made a good miniseries.
Really?
Um spending time, but only if there was something going on with the town, like a la Twin Peaks, like very
Right.
like Lynchian, like where sure, like we're following this mystery with the husband, but there's also something going on with the town, and like all of the characters are sinister. That's so I could have seen this being a short-lived miniseries where it's a dark comedy and the town is as sinister as the husband, and like there's lots going on. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But it would have
Yeah.
taken a much stronger script to do that. And there was like dream sequences where she was so like every classic creepy husband, he has a model train set. And so there's dream sequences where she shrinks down and is in the model train set, or but like,
Mm,
and there's kind of like, is she in the train set, is she in the town? So again, in a more capable director, or maybe a more capable writer, i could have seen you I could have seen those instances being weaved into a mini series, and then like lots of things become, oh, is this real? Is this not real? Like, is this sinister? Is this just weird? Like, why are they doing this? Why? Like, you know what I'm trying to explain, Mike, about how like
yes.
everything makes you question, is this real? Is this reality? And that's like the movie opens and closes with the same monologue, essentially being like, I was afraid, I came to this town, I felt safe, but I still feel like, is everything real? So that's how like the movie opens, and the exact same monologues played at the end. So like I guess you're, as the audience, you're thinking, okay, so does that mean that the narrator was unreliable, but they didn't play it that way in the movie? Like in the
Hmm.
movie, it was the bad guy is always the husband. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that, something's going on with the husband. So I think this movie would have been more effective if there was a stronger, and maybe I don't recall the name of the director writer, Mike. I don't know if this was his first foray, so I can't say if he's done other stuff. Maybe he is a really good writer, but I just think that for it being a mystery movie, it was pretty light on mystery. And
Interesting.
if he had fleshed that out, it would have been a more enjoyable movie going experience. That being said, I think the movie is a stream it. Like, this movie wasn't horrible.
Mm.
It certainly, you know what I mean? Like, it was,
Yeah.
like I said, which you kind of, you got your hackles up. It's a movie where if you just turn your brain off, it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch Nicole Kidman do what Nicole Kidman does, and she has good chemistry with the shop teacher. And you're trying to figure out what's wrong with the husband. If you can kind of just go into that, then this movie is fine.
Why don't we just say if you could just have fun with it,
Yes, if you can just
as
have
opposed to
fun.
turning your brain off.
But it's certainly no Knives Out. Like, you know what I
No,
mean?
but not every movie has to be. Not every movie has to
Yeah.
be, and that's certainly not what I mean. I think you can still have fun with movies, but yeah, I think what you're saying makes sense, as long as like people kind of understand that you're saying like it's a stream it, but you had some issues with it.
Don't explain this to be the most riveting
Yeah,
mystery story you watch all
it's a
year.
fun movie. That's what it sounds like. Sounds like
It
there
is
was some
fun.
fun to
It was
it.
fun.
It was interesting. It just wasn't. It certainly wasn't a see it, but it's not so bad that it's a skip it.
Interestingly, it takes place during the 2000s. I think it takes place in like 2001. I could be wrong. And I thought like, oh, there's been a couple movies recently that's set in a different time period, but like I would describe it as the recent past, Mike. Like
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Saltburn is set in like the recent past, although the ending does make sense now that I think of it, why it was set in the past. But in this movie, you're kind of like, okay, well, why is it set in the 2000s? I guess because it is a mystery, and with the internet, things wouldn't be, I guess they're making the case that the stuff that happens in this movie wouldn't be able to happen now because of the internet. I don't know. But I always like a movie that commits to a bit. So, they commit to it being the 2000s and it works. The costuming and the set design and the production and everything. So, yeah, it's ultimately Holland is a stream it for me.
Holland's a stream it. Okay, before we let people go, fun announcement. In about 1 month, Katie Wilson will be coming on the show, our winner from our Oscars pool. Taylor, do you want to break down what we're doing?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do it justice because it's a bit convoluted. So
it's not that convoluted.
I guess it's not that. I guess it's a very specific genre. So just as a little bit of background, the winner of our Oscar pool, the person who gets the most right wins, and the person who gets the least right wins. So Mike, have you contacted the person who has the least amount, the 0?
I have.
Okay, so
yes.
Maybe you have an announcement on that regard too, but we'll wait and see. So Katie got the best. She got a near perfect score, and so she gets to produce an episode. So she's going to come on. The theme of the episode, Mike, is fictional music bios. And
which there are 3 in particular that we're going to be looking at.
Yeah.
But I think once we name the movies, people will understand exactly what we're talking about. Like, these are not real music biopics, but they're fictional. But they're not just parodies.
They're not real.
Like
they're not real. People. They're not real bands, I guess.
So we've got Walk Hard, right?
Which is a spoof of Johnny Cash.
And then the what's the Lonely Island one? It's the
Pop Star Never
Never Stopping or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's the Andy Samberg Lonely Island one. And then the third one is which? Can't remember.
Oh, That Thing You Do with Tom Hanks.
Oh, That Thing You Do. Yes, of course. That Thing You Do with Tom Hanks, which is a great film. I've seen That Thing You Do, and I've seen the Pop Star, but I have not seen Walk Hard. So that's the one I'll be watching within this kind of month. But we wanted to tell people because, if you're interested in watching all 3 of those movies, to kind of contribute and write in and see what we're talking about. So that's Walk Hard, That Thing You Do, and Pop Star. I think it's called Pop Star Never Stopping or something like that.
But I'm sure if you Google Pop Star Andy Samberg,
you'll find it.
Yeah.
So I've seen Pop Star and I've seen That Thing You Do many times. So I look forward to revisiting those, but also watching Walk Hard.
Mike, it was almost a Tom Hanks episode because originally I had told you that
Mhm.
I think I had guessed. I had joked that Katie would want to do a Tom Hanks video,
That's
Tom
right.
Hanks episode, and then she messaged me saying, "I want to do a Tom Hanks episode," and I said, "Great, I can then review the movie that I haven't seen in your top 5," because she was going to do the top 5 Tom Hanks, and I had seen every single one that she had listed.
Mm.
So so she pivoted, and I guess she still gets to talk about a Tom Hanks movie.
Yeah. Yes. So we'll be doing we'll review all 3 of those, and we'll talk about just kind of music biopics and the fake ones, and it'll be Katie Wilson's episode. So we'll see where else it goes from there. So that's coming up at the end of the month, right after my show closes. We will be diving into that. So there you go. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening. We don't know what we're doing next week, but you know
No
what we're
idea.
doing on April 29th. So there you go.
Go see some movies.
Thank you for listening to You Had Me at Skip It, a Soul One Arts Inc. podcast. This podcast is produced by Mike Shepard and Austin Spinner Summer. It is a project of Soul One Arts Inc. To learn more about Soul One and all the great work that Soul One is doing in the arts community, especially in film, theater, and other performing arts, visit soul1arts.ca. You can contribute to this podcast by visiting soul1arts.ca and going to the podcast tab. You'll find all the information on You Had Me at Skip It and how you can get your questions read on air each week. Thank you again for listening.